Well, good morning. Welcome. It's West Tennessee Dave here, Tuesday morning. It is time for Bible Story. We are live to you on Twitch at 6:33 this morning and coming to you later on VOD on Twitch or YouTube. Hope you are excellent today. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Asibla. Good to see you. Hello there, Spacey. Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you all. Glad you're here. All right, we're going to try to muddle through this today. If you saw me last night, man, my allergies were crushing me, so we're gonna try to make it through. But we should be okay hopefully once we get reading. What are we gonna read today? We're gonna read 1 Samuel 11 through 15. All right, so we didn't have one on Sunday, so just a quick recap. The people wanted a king. They didn't want a judge to be rule over them anymore. They wanted somebody who was appointed, and the first king became Saul. And we're going to hear more about Saul today as we go forth. But he is taller than basically anyone else in all of Israel, so everyone could see him, which is kind of nice. And he's a pretty handsome guy, they said, so and yeah, so he just sticks out. He sticks out amongst the crowd, but he's also from the tribe of Benjamin, which is one of the smallest tribes. And if you remember from the last story of Judges, Benjamin almost got wiped out from the map because of the sin they started. So they have a really small. That's right, Tall Saul, the town hunk. All right, so let's get going. Let's take a little water. About a month later, King Nahash of Ammon led his army against the Israelite town of Jabesh Gilead. But all the citizens of Jabesh asked for peace. Make a treaty with us, and we will be your servants, they pleaded. All right, Nahash said, but only on one condition. If you gouge out your right eye of every one of you as a disgrace to all of Israel. Give us 7 days to send messengers throughout Israel, replied the elders of Jabesh. If no one comes to save us, we will agree to your terms. When the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul and told the people about their plight, everyone broke into tears. Saul had been plowing a field with his oxen when he returned to the town. He asked, "What's the matter? Why is everyone crying?" So they told him about the message from Jabesh. Then the Spirit of God came powerfully upon Saul, and he became very angry. He took 2 oxen and cut them into pieces and sent the messengers to carry them throughout Israel with this message. This is what will happen to the oxen of anyone who refuses to follow Saul and Samuel into battle. And the Lord made the people afraid of Saul's anger, and all of them came out together as one. When Saul mobilized at Bezek, he found that there were 300,000 men from Israel and 30,000 men from Judah. So Saul sent the messengers back to Jabesh Gilead and said, "We will rescue you by noontime tomorrow." There was great joy throughout the town when that message arrived. The men of Jabesh then told their enemies, "Tomorrow we will come out to you, and you can do to us whatever you wish." But before dawn the next morning, Saul arrived. Having divided his army into 3 detachments, he launched a surprise attack against the Ammonites and slaughtered them the whole morning. The remnant of their army was so badly scattered that no two of them were left together. Then the people exclaimed to Samuel, "Now, where are those men who said, 'Why should Saul rule over us?' Bring them here, and we will kill them." But Saul replied, "No one will be executed today, for today the Lord has rescued Israel." Then Samuel said to the people, "Come, let us all go to Gilgal to renew the kingdom." So they all went to Gilgal, and in a solemn ceremony before the Lord they made Saul king. Then they offered peace offerings to the Lord, and Saul and all the Israelites were filled with joy. Then Samuel addressed all Israel. "I have done as you asked and given you a king. Your king is now your leader. I stand here before you, an old, gray-haired man. and my sons serve you. I have served as your leader from the time I was a boy to this very day. Now testify against me in the presence of the Lord and before his anointed one. Whose ox or donkey have I stolen? Have I ever cheated any of you? Have I ever oppressed you? Have I ever taken a bribe or perverted justice? Tell me, and I will make right whatever I have done wrong. No, they replied, you have never cheated us or oppressed us, and you have never taken even a single bribe. The Lord and his anointed one are my witnesses today, Samuel declared, that my hands are clean. Yes, he is a witness, they replied. It was the Lord who appointed Moses and Aaron, Samuel continued. He brought your ancestors out of the land of Egypt. Now stand here quietly before the Lord as I remind you of all the great things the Lord has done for you and your ancestors. When the Israelites were in Egypt and cried out to the Lord, he sent Moses and Aaron to rescue them from Egypt and to bring them into this land. But the people soon forgot about the Lord their God, so he handed them over to Sisera, the commander of Hazor's army, and also to the Philistines and to the king of Moab who fought against them. Then they cried to the Lord and again confessed, we have sinned by turning away from the Lord and worshipping the images of Baal and Ashtoreth. But we will worship you and you alone if you will rescue us from our enemies. Then the Lord sent Gideon, Badon, Japheth, and Samuel to save you, and you lived in safety. But when you were afraid of Nahash, the king of Ammon, you came to me and said that you wanted a king to reign over you, even though the Lord your God was already your king. All right, here is your king you have chosen. You asked for him, and the Lord has granted your request. Now, if you fear and worship the Lord and listen to his voice, and if you do not rebel against the Lord's commands, then both you and your king will show that you recognize the Lord as your God. But if you rebel against the Lord's commands and refuse to listen to him, then his hand will be as heavy upon you as it was upon your ancestors. Now stand here and see the great thing the Lord is about to do. You know that it does not rain at this time of year during the wheat harvest. I will ask the Lord to send thunder and rain today. Then you will realize how wicked you have been in asking the Lord for a king. So Samuel called to the Lord, and the Lord sent thunder and rain that day. And all the people were terrified of the Lord and of Samuel. Pray to the Lord your God for us, or we will die, they all said to Samuel. For now we have added to our sins by asking for a king. Don't be afraid, Samuel reassured them. You have certainly done wrong. But make sure now that you worship the Lord with all your heart, and don't turn your back on him. Don't go back to worshiping worthless idols that cannot help or rescue you. They are totally useless. The Lord will not abandon his people because that would dishonor his great name, for it has pleased the Lord to make you his very own people. As for me, I will certainly not sin against the Lord by ending my prayers for you, and I will continue to teach you what is good and right. But be sure to fear the Lord and faithfully serve him. Think of all the wonderful things he has done for you. But if you continue to sin, you and your king will be swept away. Saul was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned for 42 years. Saul selected 3,000 troops from the army of Israel and sent the rest of the men home. He took 2,000 of the chosen men with him to Michmash in the hill country of Bethel. The other 1,000 went with Saul's son Jonathan to Gibeah in the land of Benjamin. Soon after this, Jonathan attacked and defeated the garrison of Philistines at Gibeah. The news spread quickly among the Philistines. So Saul blew the ram's horn throughout the land, saying, Hebrews, hear this. Rise up and revolt. All Israel heard the news that Saul had destroyed the Philistine garrison at Gibeah, and that the Philistines now hated the Israelites more than ever. So the entire Israelite army was summoned to join Saul at Gilgal. The Philistines mustered a mighty army of 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and as many warriors as the grains of sand on the seashore. They camped at Michmash east of Beth-aven. The men of Israel saw what a tight spot they were in, and because they were hard pressed by the enemy, they tried to hide in caves, thickets, rocks, holes, and cisterns. Some of them crossed the Jordan River and escaped into the land of Gad and Gilead. Meanwhile, Saul stayed at Gilgal, and his men were trembling with fear. Saul waited there 7 days for Samuel, as Samuel had instructed him earlier. But Samuel still didn't come. Saul realized that his troops were rapidly slipping away, so he demanded, "Bring me the burnt offering and the peace offerings." And Saul sacrificed the burnt offering himself. Just as Saul was finishing with the burnt offering, Samuel arrived. Saul went out to meet and welcome him, but Samuel said, "What is this you have done?" Saul replied, "I saw my men scattering from me, and you didn't arrive when you said you would. And the Philistines are at Michmash ready for battle. So I said, 'The Philistines are ready to march against us at Gilgal, and I haven't even asked for the Lord's help.' So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering myself before you came." "How foolish!" Samuel exclaimed. "You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. Had you kept it, the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom must end, for the Lord has sought out a man after his own heart. The Lord has already appointed him to be the leader of his people because you have not kept the Lord's command." Samuel then left Gilgal and went on his way, but the rest of the troops went with Saul to meet the army. They went up from Gilgal to Gibeah in the land of Benjamin. When Saul counted the men who were still with him, he found only 600 were left. Saul and Jonathan and the troops with them were staying at Geba in the land of Benjamin. The Philistines set up their camp at Michmash. 3 raiding parties soon left the camp of the Philistines. One went north toward Ophrah in the land of Shual. Another went west to Beth Horon, and the third moved toward the border above the valley at Zeboim, near the wilderness. There were no blacksmiths in the land of Israel in those days. The Philistines wouldn't allow them for fear that they would make swords and spears for the Hebrews. So, whenever the Israelites needed to sharpen their plowshares, picks, axes, or sickles, they had to take them to a Philistine blacksmith. The charges were as follows: a quarter of an ounce of silver for sharpening a plowshare or a pick, an eighth of an ounce for sharpening an axe or making a point of an ox goad. So on the day of battle, none of the people of Israel had a sword or a spear except for Saul and Jonathan. The pass in Michmash had meanwhile been secured by a contingent of the Philistine army. One day, Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, "Come on, let's go over to where the Philistines have their outpost." But Jonathan did not tell his father what he was doing. Meanwhile, Saul and his 600 men were camped out at the outskirts of Gibeah, around the pomegranate tree at Migron. Among Saul's men were Ahijah the priest, who was wearing the ephod, the priestly vest. Ahijah was the son of Ichabod's brother Ahitub, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the Lord who had served at Shiloh. No one realized that Jonathan had left the Israelite camp. To reach the Philistine outpost, Jonathan had to go down between 2 rocky cliffs that were called Bozez and Seneh. The cliff on the north was in front of Michmash, and the one on the south was in front of Geba. "Let's go across to the outpost of those pagans," Jonathan said to his armor-bearer. "Perhaps the Lord will help us. For nothing can hinder the Lord. He can win a battle whether he has many warriors or only a few." "Do what you think is best," the armor-bearer replied. "I'm with you completely, whatever you decide." "All right, then," Jonathan told him. "We will cross over and let them see us. If they say to us, 'Stay here, stay where you are, or we will kill you,' then we will stop and not go up to them. But if they say, 'Come on up and fight,' then we will go up. That will be the Lord's sign that he will help us defeat them." When the Philistines saw them coming up, they shouted, "Look, the Hebrews are crawling out of their holes." Then the men from the outpost shouted to Jonathan, "Come up here and we'll teach you a lesson." "Come on, climb right behind me," Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, "for the Lord will help us defeat them." So they climbed up using both hands and feet, and the Philistines fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer killed those who came behind them. They killed some 20 men in all, and their bodies were scattered over about a half an acre. Suddenly panic broke out in the Philistine army, both in the camp and in the field, including even the outpost and raiding parties. And just then an earthquake struck, and everyone was terrified. Saul's lookouts in Gibeah of Benjamin saw a strange sight. The vast army of Philistines began to melt away in every direction. "Call the roll and find out who's missing," Saul ordered. And when they checked, they found that Jonathan and his armor-bearer were gone. Then Saul shouted to Ahijah, "Bring the ephod here." For at that time Ahijah was wearing the ephod in front of the Israelites. But while Saul was talking to the priest, the confusion in the Philistine camp grew louder and louder. So Saul said to the priest, "Never mind, let's get going." Then Saul and all his men rushed out to the battle and found the Philistines killing each other. There was terrible confusion everywhere. Even the Hebrews who had previously gone over to the Philistine army revolted and joined in with Saul, Jonathan, and the rest of the Israelites. Likewise, the men of Israel who were hiding in the hill country of Ephraim joined the chase when they saw the Philistines running away. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle continued to rage even beyond Beth Aven. Now, the men of Israel were pressed to exhaustion that day, because Saul had placed them under an oath, saying, "Let a curse fall on anyone who eats before evening, before I have full revenge on my enemies." So no one ate anything all day, even though they had all found honeycomb on the ground in the forest. They didn't dare touch the honey because they all feared the oath they had taken. But Jonathan had not heard his father's command, and he dipped the end of his stick into a piece of honeycomb and ate the honey. After he had eaten it, he felt refreshed. But one of the men saw him and said, "Your father made the army take a strict oath that anybody who eats food today will be cursed. That is why everyone is weary and faint." "My father has made trouble for us all," Jonathan exclaimed. "A command like that only hurts us. See how refreshed I am now that I have eaten a little bit of this honey." If the men had been allowed to eat freely from the food they found among our enemies, think how many more Philistines we would have killed. They chased and killed the Philistines all day from Michmash to Ahijalon, growing more and more faint. That evening they rushed for the battle plunder and butchered the sheep, goats, cattle, and calves, but they ate them without draining the blood. Someone reported to Saul, "Look, the men are sinning against the Lord by eating meat that still has blood in it." "That is very wrong," Saul said. "Find a large stone and roll it over here. Then go out among the troops and tell them, 'Bring the cattle, sheep, and goats here to me. Kill them here and drain the blood before you eat them. Do not sin against the Lord by eating meat with its blood still in it.'" So that night all the troops brought their animals and slaughtered them there. Then Saul built an altar to the Lord. It was the first of the altars he built to the Lord. Then Saul said, "Let's chase the Philistines all night and plunder them until sunrise. Let's destroy every last one of them." His men replied, "We'll do whatever you think is best." But the priest said, "Let's ask God first." So Saul asked God, "Should we go after the Philistines? Will you help us defeat them?" But God made no reply that day. Then Saul said to the leaders, "Something's wrong. I want all of my army commanders to come here. We must find out what sin was committed today. I vow by the name of the Lord who rescued Israel that the sinner will surely die, even if it is my own son Jonathan." But no one would tell him what the trouble was. Then Saul said, "Jonathan and I will stand over here, and all of you stand over there." And the people responded to Saul, "Whatever you think is best." Then Saul prayed, "O Lord, God of Israel, please show us who is guilty and who is innocent." Then they cast sacred lots, and Jonathan and Saul were chosen as the guilty ones. Then the people were declared innocent. Then Saul said, "Now cast lots again and choose between me and Jonathan." And Jonathan was shown to be the guilty one. "Tell me what you have done," Saul demanded of Jonathan. "I tasted a little honey," Jonathan admitted. "It was only a little bit on the end of my stick. Does that deserve death?" "Yes, Jonathan," Saul said. "You must die. May God strike me and even kill me if you do not die for this." But the people broke in and said to Saul, "Jonathan has won the great victory for Israel. Should he die? Far from it. As surely as the Lord lives, not one hair on his head will be touched, for God helped him do a great deed today." So the people rescued Jonathan, and he was not put to death. Then Saul called back the army from chasing the Philistines, and the Philistines returned home. Now when Saul had secured his grasp on Israel's throne, he fought against his enemies in every direction, against Moab, Ammon, Edom, and the kings of Zobah, and the Philistines, and wherever he turned he was victorious. He performed great deeds and conquered the Amalekites, saving Israel from all those who had plundered them. Saul's sons included Jonathan, Ishbosheth, and Malchishua. He also had two daughters, Merab who was the older, and Michal. Saul's wife was Ah- Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz. The commander of Saul's army was Abner, the son of Saul's uncle Ner. Saul's father Kish and Abner's father Ner were both sons of Abiel. The Israelites fought constantly with the Philistines throughout Saul's lifetime. So whenever Saul observed a young man who was brave and strong, he drafted him into his army. One day, Samuel said to Saul, "It was the Lord who told me to anoint you as king of his people Israel. Now listen to this message from the Lord. This is what the Lord of heaven's army has declared. I have decided to settle accounts with the nation of Amalek for opposing Israel when they came from Egypt. Now go and completely destroy the Amalekite nation: men, women, children, babies, cattle, sheep, goats, camels, and donkeys." So Saul mobilized his army at Telem. There were 200,000 soldiers from Israel and 10,000 men from Judah. Then Saul and his army went to the town of the Amalekites and lay in wait in the valley. Saul sent this warning to the Kenites: "Move away from where the Amalekites live, or you will die with them. For you showed kindness to all the people of Israel when they came up from Egypt." So the Kenites packed up and left. Then Saul slaughtered the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, east of Egypt. He captured Agag, the Amalekite king, but completely destroyed everyone else. Saul and his men spared Agag's life and kept the best of the sheep and goats, the cattle, the fat calves, and the lambs. Everything, in fact, that appealed to them. They destroyed only what was worthless or of poor quality. Then the Lord said to Samuel, "I am sorry that I ever made Saul king, for he has not been loyal to me and has refused to obey my command." Samuel was so deeply moved when he heard this that he cried out to the Lord all night. Early the next morning, Samuel went to find Saul. Someone told him Saul went to the town of Carmel to set up a monument to himself. Then he went on to Gilgal. When Samuel finally found him, Saul greeted him cheerfully. "May the Lord bless you," he said. "I have carried out the Lord's command." "Then what is all the bleating of the sheep and goats and the lowing of cattle I hear?" Samuel demanded. "It's true that the army spared the best of the sheep, goats, and cattle," Saul admitted, "but they are going to sacrifice them to the Lord your God. We have destroyed everything else." Then Samuel said to Saul, "Stop. Listen to what the Lord told me last night." "What did he tell you?" Saul asked. And Samuel told him, "Although you may think little of yourself, are you not the leader of the tribes of Israel? The Lord has anointed you king of Israel. And the Lord sent you on a mission and told you, 'Go and completely destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, until they are dead.' Why haven't you obeyed the Lord? Why did you rush for the plunder and do what was evil in the Lord's sight?" "But I did obey the Lord," Saul insisted. "I carried out the mission he gave me. I brought back King Agag, but I destroyed everyone else. Then my troops brought in the best of the sheep, goats, cattle, and plunder to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Israel." But Samuel replied, "What is more pleasing to the Lord, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, or your obedience to his voice? Listen, obedience is better than sacrifice, and submission is better than offering the fat of rams. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft, and stubbornness as bad as worshiping idols. So because you have rejected the command of the Lord, he has rejected you as king." Then Saul admitted to Samuel, "Yes, I have sinned. I have disobeyed your instructions and the Lord's command, for I was afraid of the people and did what they demanded. But now, please forgive my sin and come back with me so that I may worship the Lord." But Samuel replied, "I will not go back with you. Since you have rejected the Lord's command, he has rejected you as king of Israel." As Samuel turned to go, Saul tried to hold him back and tore the hem of his robe. And Samuel said to him, "The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to someone else who is better than you. And he who is the glory of Israel will not lie, nor will he change his mind, for he is not human that he should change his mind." Then Saul pleaded again, "I know I have sinned, but please, at least honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel by coming back with me so that I may worship the Lord your God." So Samuel finally agreed and went back with him, and Saul worshipped the Lord. Then Samuel said, "Bring King Agag to me." Agag arrived full of hope, for he thought, "Surely the worst is over. I have been spared." But Samuel said, "As your sword has killed the sons of many mothers, now your mother will be childless." And Samuel cut Agag to pieces before the Lord at Gilgal. Then Samuel went home to Ramah, and Saul returned to his house at Gibeah of Saul. Samuel never went to meet with Saul again, but he mourned constantly for him, and the Lord was sorry he had ever made Saul king of Israel. Okay, that is where we're going to stop today. Oh, let's take a sip of water. So Saul becomes king. He starts having some military conquest. But Saul is kind of foolish. And we might think, like, you can see this story and think, oh, gosh, how come he can't just get it right? But there's a big difference between kind of following orders and following orders. And that is a lesson we still all need. If you have some direct orders from a boss or for somebody who's in charge of you and you kind of follow it, even though you might get the right results at the end of the day, you become results oriented and you still weren't really obedient. You kind of did the work, but you didn't do it the way they asked you to do it. And this is what Saul's doing here. And we see his heart in it both times. We see his heart um which is, I was afraid of the people. Being afraid of people, being afraid of their opinion of you, or being afraid to look weak or to look incompetent or whatever else you can maybe put in there, and then kind of just doing your best under the circumstances is going to get you into a lot of trouble. This is just in your own life, right? If yeah, so we see that picture with Saul here. In these pictures and these stories are told so they can be a mirror to us, right? How much are we like Saul? How much, when somebody asks us to do something and gives us specific instructions, do we do that versus not? And so think about it like this. My wife, she like I'm going to say it this way, like, and it's bad on myself. My wife loves to follow a recipe to the letter, to the T. And why? She has confidence in the person that made the recipe. And I think if it goes wrong, she can blame the recipe. Okay? Now, me, on the other hand, I generally look at recipes and use them as a guideline. But I generally like to just mix it up a little bit. Maybe I use some of the wisdom I know or whatever else, right? And is one better than the other? Well, if I follow the recipe to the T that she gives me and she says, make it like this and follow the recipe, then I'm obeying her. If I alter it at all, then who's to blame for it going wrong? Well, I'm to blame if it goes wrong if I didn't follow the right recipe. Because I took some liberties of doing it however I wanted. And maybe that's not what she wanted. Maybe there's certain spices I want in there, but she doesn't want. And so if she picks it out and she says, do this, well, then I need to follow that. Right? And this does does it mean like were my intentions evil to not follow the recipe? No, like it's to use some of my creativity and my understanding of food taste or whatever. But if I'm told follow this recipe and I don't, I'm being disobedient, right? Now, is my wife in charge of me? Not exactly, right? But we're in a partnership together. And so if she picks out a meal and says, I want you to do this, then I just need to follow the recipe, even if that's not my thing. Um, in the same way, like we have so many examples of that. If your boss tells you to do X, Y, and Z, you need to do X, Y, and Z like they said. Oh, man, every day around this 7 o'clock, these people want to come in here. Yeah, it's disrespectful to her who's picked out the recipe, right? She's she's putting herself on the line by picking out the recipe and wants it to be followed to followed to a T. That's what she wants. And so we have to like if I don't want to follow the recipe, I can't just assume that I can do it, right? So back to the relationship and partnership, if I don't want to follow the recipe, in order to be honoring to her, I have to go back and say, "Hey, look, I want to change this," right? And then she has the ability to approve or disapprove of the change requests that I'm making, right? And the same would be true with your boss. Say, "Hey, look, you told me to do X, Y, and Z, but I think we should do this," right? Give your boss the ability to say, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Thanks for saying that." But if you just do it and then come back to your boss later, right? You're kind of either showing them up or you're saying they don't know what they're doing, right? Even if it's right, you didn't you stopped working in collaboration and now there's like competition on the line. And once there's competition on the line, now people are trying to prove themselves, and that's kind of what Saul's doing here. He wants to prove himself as a good king. He wants to have the respect of the people in their eyes. He's more concerned with looking like a good king, acting like a good king, than being obedient to the one who's called him to do something. And when the one that calls you to do something says, do it this way, right? They're going to help you do it that way. But when you start to veer off track, well, why should they help you? Good morning, Tequila Dragon. Good to see you. And so that heart issue of wanting to look good in front of people, to wanting to look like you're competent, to want to appease them, it could be super dangerous. All right? It's good to help others, but only if we're called to help others. And we are called to help others most of the time. But we have to also be obedient to what God says, right? And so we see a couple of these things. One, we've seen this message, we've heard this like 2 or 3 times before, and we saw this with the judges. Don't make silly vows. I mean, Saul makes this crazy vow. Hey, we're an army. I mean, army are guys that are strong and mighty, and they probably need to be fed every day, maybe 1, 2, 3 meals a day. And he says, nobody's eating until I have revenge on my thing. Otherwise, you're dead. It's like, why? Did God say to do this? Like, what is that? Jonathan wasn't there for that. And so Jonathan ate some honey throughout the thing. And eventually somebody told him after he ate some, I don't think he ate any more after that point, but he didn't hear the thing originally. So, but Saul's still like, we're going to kill you. You're my son, but you're dead. And the people are like, no. And so again, he kowtows to the people here. So what's the right thing? I mean, unfortunately, the right thing is probably to kill his son because he made the vow to God. Okay. And again, we've seen this. Like, don't make crazy vows. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? You're just trying to make yourself look good in front of the people. Like, oh, we could take revenge and we're not going to eat. We're going to fast. Like, it's kind of just a silly thing. Like, Jonathan gets it. Like, what a silly statement to make. Um, and then the people are just, they don't destroy all the plunder. They weren't supposed to take any of the plunder from the Amalekites in this one, and instead, because they're so hungry, then they start just eating the meat with blood still in it, which is totally against their rules. And again, Saul's just taking matters into his own hands so often here. He starts doing the burnt sacrifice and offering, which he's not allowed to do. It's for somebody in the priestly line to do. And so, um, but he's just trying to do this to make himself look good and not look like a fool in front of others. But we see so many times throughout Scripture that God kind of makes foolish the foolish rise up. There were 22,000, or maybe even more than that, maybe 30,000 troops when Gideon was there, and God narrowed that down to 300 people. Okay, so getting less people doesn't mean anything. And Jonathan kind of said the same thing when he went up there. He's like, let's go up. Let's take it. If God wants to do it, he's going to say it like this, and we'll go up there and we'll destroy him. It doesn't matter how many people there are. God can do it with just a few. So Jonathan's trusting God. Saul is trusting in his numbers and making sure that he has everything he needs. How much more are we like that? Which one are we more like? Are we trusting God that it doesn't matter what our bank says we have? Doesn't matter what resources we have at our disposal. Oh, I'll follow God, or I'll do these things once I get myself established, or once I'm secure, or once I have a following. Like, none of that matters, right? We're in a relationship with Him if we choose to be. And then in any relationship, let's talk to each other, listen to each other, follow each other's instructions, and have a good back and forth dialogue if we disagree on something. But eventually, as it said today, what is better, our sacrifices and our offerings, or our obedience, and our submission? To submit to one another because we honor somebody is great. To submit to God and to learn to do that, man, it's a lifelong journey. A lifelong journey of saying, okay, you know better than I do, which He does, which God knows better than us. And your plan is better than the one I can come up with. So let's put down all the desires of what we think is right sometimes, because when we trust God to give us a way forward, He will. He does have plans for us. We just have to be on the journey to figure out what they are. Okay, I guess that's where I'll stop today. Saul gets anointed, but he doesn't seem to follow through. His heart is not truly turning to the Lord, and that is why God is sorry that He made him king. So let's not let God be sorry He's chosen us. He's done a lot to choose us. Let us just listen and do our best to follow the instructions we're given. He knew the king business was going to go south. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like, that is a hard concept, right? Like, um, he didn't want the people to have king, but he also knew that he wants people to have free will. In order to choose to submit to someone, in order to choose to obey somebody, in order to choose to love somebody, you have to have free will. And we see the whole thing go south at the very beginning of our Bible stories. He creates man and woman and all the animals and everything else And he gives one instruction. He gives like two instructions: name the animals, rule and reign over them, and don't eat from this tree of knowledge and good and evil. And they break the one rule. And this is the common theme throughout humanity, is that we break the rules that God puts in front of us in our own lives very often. And why is it? It's the same thing that's happening here with Saul. It's the same thing that's happened throughout the scripture. Why do we break the thing? We just don't. We we think we can do it ourselves now. We think God's holding out on us. Again, those are not great things of our heart. He knew that it was going to go south too. Like, he still created us knowing it was going to go south, because God knows. And he allows the kingship because that's what the people wanted. He gives people the free will to choose the directions they're supposed to go, even if that's rejecting him. And that is tough. The same way that I can change the recipe up, my wife gives me the free will to change it up. Um, and that doesn't always please her. Right? Well, it's the choice. It's the choice we make to submit to something else. So we have free will to do whatever we want. It's our choice now to follow or not, to be obedient or not to the words that he says to us, whatever those are. And in the same way, when we're in a covenant relationship with somebody, like a spouse, like, we're in a partnership. It's the same kind of thing. A covenant relationship is a partnership. So in this partnership, he wants us to be obedient. He doesn't necessarily just always say, don't do it without asking questions. That's part of having a great relationship. If you want to change some of it, then have a conversation and adjust. But don't just assume you get to make all the choices. Because the moment you do that, you're taking out the will of the other party. And so the will of God is then not done. The will of Dave is done, or the will of Spacey, or the will of anyone else. Whoever gets to choose is doing it because they're like, well, I get to do whatever I want. You do, but you hurt your covenant relationship. And so those that follow after God's heart, and we're going to see somebody, is somebody who keeps going to God with the questions and then follows them, and sometimes has dialogue back and forth. All right? And that's what we're supposed to do. That's what our relationship with God is supposed to look like, and then our relationship with our other covenant relationships is supposed to look like, and with other people. But we're not generally in too many super covenant relationships. You know, we have God, we might have spouse, maybe our parents if we're younger. Once we're older, we kind of break off from that covenant relationship with parents, because they still are our parents, but we have made our own home. So anyways, all right. Thank you. Yeah, we could still respect our parents, right? Honor your father and mother. It's what the commandment was: honor your father and mother, right? To honor them, to listen to them, and to have back and forth conversation. But once you start your own family, you're not under their authority really anymore. So, all right, that said, love you guys. So glad you are here today. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Just quick couple things. I'm going to be out of town this weekend, so there won't be a Friday or a Sunday stream for the Bible. So it will be a week before we get back into this one. I will be streaming Wednesday night, and then I won't be back on until Monday study stream. So you guys have a great day, great weekend. Hopefully, I'll see some of you on Wednesday night. But until then, love one another, love those around you, and yeah, let's try to learn to communicate well with others. Right, to have that back and forth, that conversational relationship with others, and not just pressing our will against other people and making them feel the pain of it. If we want to have relationship with others, let's make sure that we're including them in the conversations that we're how we affect one another. So, yep, no Friday or Sunday morning this week, but next week we'll get back at our regular scheduled events going forward for a little while. So, thank you all. Love you. Have a great day. See you all maybe tomorrow.